Hi everyone, and welcome to your week 4 lap guide for the Advanced Mazda series. My name is Adam, and this week is at Daytona. So let's start by having a look at the hot lap. So as we come across the line here, we want to keep it quite narrow as we come across the line, but then we want to go up to the outside quite early as we cross the line. So by about this first line here, we want to be basically up here like a car whiff from the outside, and then by this point we want to be basically at the outside. The braking point is quite late for this first corner. I like to stay sort of in the middle of the track and use this sort of line for the tarmac as a braking point. Of course, since it goes across the track, it depends sort of where on the track you are, the braking point. But if you stay it's sort of in the middle, this should be quite a good marker. Quite hard on the brakes and try to keep the car straight as we are braking. Since it is quite a heavy braking zone, it's quite important that we do try to keep the car straight and head for this sort of outside line here with the outside tires. And then by about this point, we want to start bleeding off and trail brake around about until here, and that's where we're going to get on the throttle. When it comes to the line, you want to go as far to the inside as you can without touching the grass. The grass is going to upset the car quite a lot, so you definitely want to avoid that. But also you want to keep the car as far to the inside as possible. So like this is basically where you want to be. And then from here it's basically just full throttle. Keeping the car about a car away from this outside curb to get a straighter line through this S section here. And these curbs are actually quite rough, so you want to avoid using most of them. You can touch them like this, but if you put the inside wheels here, then it's going to upset the car, and you're going to lose speed. So this is where you want to be, and sort of the same thing for this one. And into the first hairpin here, my braking point is this access road here on the inside. So as this starts on this little intersection at the line here, that's where you want to brake. Quite hard initially, and then bleeding off and turning in around about here. The corner is quite long in this car, so you don't actually want to take too much height as you enter the corner. You can enter relatively tight, so sort of like this. Trail brake into the apex and start getting on the throttle around about here. On the apex, you can just ever so slightly graze this curb. If you use any more than this, it's going to upset the car. But just using it ever so slightly can help you get a slightly better line. Early on the throttle, you can see here I'm already full throttle. And we want to use all the track on the exit, so we can go even beyond this white line and out to this yellow curb here. And that's going to give us much more speed onto this straight. This kink here is very straightforward in this car, just full throttle, keeping the car to the left as we exit the kink and enter this horseshoe here. Braking point is once again the end of this line here, where it intersects the access road and the main track, or just before it, ever so slightly, and quite hard on the brakes initially, and keeping the car straight as we brake. We want to aim for roughly the middle of the track as we enter the corner, and we want to start turning in around over here, so relatively early. This is once again quite a long corner, so you can turn in quite early. And we want to go early on the throttle, because the corner opens up on the exit. And in this car, it's really not the end of the world if we do miss the apex at the end of the corner here. Because it's quite low power, we can let the car just drift out a bit. In a car with more power, you want to stay to the inside here, but this car has quite low power, so we can go on throttle early and just use the speed instead. And as we enter this left-hander here, this is probably one of the most important corners on the entire track, because it sets up our exit speed all the way onto the banking. Braking point is roughly the middle of this access road here, so around about here. Braking relatively hard in a straight line, and then turning in actually relatively early, because once again the corner opens up on the exit. And we want to go very early on the power. So around about here we are already on the power. And even though I'm very far out here, because I'm so early on the power, I'm basically a car away from this exit curb here. I can still get the car to the inside here, because the car has so little power. Once again, in a car with more power, you would go straighter here and even go all the way out to the wall. But this car has so little power that you can just keep it to the inside, despite going so early on the throttle. Then we just want to keep it tight all the way through to the bus stop. And this corner is once again one of the most important on the track. It sets up our exit for the other part of the banking. And the braking point is roughly between this yellow marker here and the one board. So round about here. Braking about 40% at max. And we want to make sure we stay to the wall all the way until we start actually turning into the corner. Just because that opens up our line quite a lot. So we start turning in a little bit after this one board, using all of the curb here, even putting two wheels almost on the grass. Using more than this is probably going to give you a slowdown or a 1x, but this is quite close to the limit. You can ever so slightly touch the grass, but this is very close to the limit. And we are already on the power a bit. Braking ever so slightly between these first two corners, just to get the car turned in for the second part, then back on the power. You can see that I'm also using this curb quite a lot. It helps you get a much more straight line through the entire chicane, but you do need to be careful because the off-tracks here are very strict. So if you use this grass any more than I do, you are gonna get a 1x. Same thing goes for here. This curb is quite strict on the track limits, so you can't use really any more than I do here. And we already on full throttle here, and we want to keep this throttle all the way through. And once again, this last chicane or this last curb, use lots of it. You can even put two wheels on the grass here, like I do ever so slightly here. But if you do use more, you will get a 1x or a slowdown. So basically this line is quite important. You want to keep the car quite straight, and we're going to have another look at this in Delta. So here we are looking at the bus stop here in Delta, and you can see on my line here that I do take lots of liberties with track limits at basically all of these curbs. And one of the most important things is to keep the car straight here in the middle of the corner. So right here, you want to make sure that the car is straight and very tight to the inside line here to give you the best exit onto the banking. So now that we have this exit speed going onto the banking, we want to keep the car very tight. Basically just keeping it tight all the way up to the line. And we want to keep the car tight all the way through. On a quali lap, you can use this apron here at the end of the lap. It's gonna give you a couple hundredths probably on a quali lap. But you don't want to do this in the race because it upsets your entry into turn 1. And also, when you're racing someone, you can go down onto the apron, but if you do go down to the apron, then if there is a car up here on the main track, then they don't have to let you in if you want to get back onto the track. So that's something you could do maybe on the last lap, but I wouldn't do it in basically any other situation. And that's basically it. That's the lap of Daytona. So that's it. Hopefully this will help you throughout your racing this week at Daytona. If you want to use my setup in your races, you can find it on Coach Dave Delta. More lap guides and hot laps can be found on the Coach Dave YouTube channel, and any help you might need can be found on the Coach Dave Discord. See you next week for week 5.